good morning, everybody, and welcome to The Art as Well. My guest this morning is the multi-award winning actress Bríd Ní Neachtain. And without further ado, because we'll be discussing all sorts of things about her career, we'll go straight over to Bríd and say good morning. Good morning, Bríd. How are you?
Good morning, Alan, and thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all.
My pleasure. Thanks, Bríd. I'm delighted to have somebody who's in a different part of the arts. And as we were discussing earlier, you know, there's a lot of similarity between acting, the art of acting, and the art of painting and various associated elements to that. And that is, you know, it can be a very solitary existence. It's good to have some representation, but difficult to get that representation. It's a very rewarding career, but very, you know, it can be tricky, a very tricky career. But before we get into that, let me talk about you and where you were born, because you were brought up Oscailiga, am I right?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was born in a little village in Rossmock in the Connemara Gaeltacht. We had Irish all around us. I did not come from an artistic background at all. My mother was a stay-at-home mum. My father was a small farmer. Connemara then and Connemara now, it was a different Connemara because we didn't have TG Cahir, and we didn't have Cine Cahir, which is the latest scheme that they have for film. We didn't have any schools, any acting schools or anything like that. So I grew up, went to a boarding school because there was no transport actually that you could actually commute and stuff. Went to a boarding school, and during my time there was a nun, and who was very interested in the arts, very interested in actually, you know, all of that. She sort of submitted us for little school plays and stuff like that. And we went from regional, you know, to the Dublin finals, and there was something about it. I was quite young. I went to boarding school when I was 11, and there was something about it, being on stage, even at that early age, that I went, oh my God, this is wonderful. But I went on, did my Leaving Cert, didn't want to go to college, didn't know what I wanted to do, and I wrote a letter to the artistic director of the Abbey Theatre, yes, who was Thomas McConnell at the time, and I said, "Dear sir, I am Bríd Ní Neachtain. I am from Rossmock, Connemara. I think I was about 16. I'm 16 years old, and I want to be an actor."
Fantastic.
Yeah. And I just sent it off, and my mother saying, "Listen, that's..." And I think within 2 weeks, I got an answer and said, "Could you come up? There is a vacancy." A lot of our profession is to do with luck, Alan. You know, you could be in the right.
Hold on a second. I think you made your luck by writing that letter.
Well, maybe I did. Maybe I did.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. But so he said, "Could you come up? There is a vacancy for an assistant stage manager." And he knew I wanted to act. So he said, "You'll have the opportunity of working on plays, on different productions from day one, from the page really to the stage." Yeah. So I'd never been in Dublin before. My mother came up with me. I remember to this day sitting in that theatre and seeing all, you know, Yeats, Lady Gregory, all those paintings all around me. And he came down at 1:30 because he was rehearsing a play at the time. He came down and said, "Yes, we would like you to come." He was very interested in Irish. He knew I spoke Irish. At the time, they did a lot of Irish productions and stuff. And he said, "There is a vacancy, and could you start in 2 weeks' time?" And I went, "Okay, all right." Then I had to, you know, find accommodation and stuff. I was lucky that my brother was teaching in Dublin at the time. So through him, I kind of found a little bedsit, and I started from there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So really from the ground up.
from the ground up. There wasn't a school of acting. The school of acting had finished at the time, so there wasn't a school of acting, but there were different courses. There were different directors that used to come from abroad and stuff, and then you got to work with Irish directors, and you got to see actors from day one, until performance.
Tell me, Bríd, do you think you missed out in any way by not attending an acting college, or do you think you benefited in a sense by really learning the ropes from A to Z, as they say?
I think, well, I suppose I did miss out to an extent, because now, I mean, if you look at the Lyre and if you look at Trinity and if you look at the Gaiety, they cover all aspects of it.
Yes.
And in a way, I was lucky, because at the time that I was assisting the stage manager on maybe one production. Then they'd have me, okay, you're doing sound on the next. So I was thrown in at the deep end, really. So I suppose I did learn the craft. I did learn that it's a collaboration.
Yes.
To respect everybody, not just us as actors, because we're in front of an audience and we've got the limelight, but it's a collaboration. And I've always held true to that, that you respect all aspects, whether it's costume, whether it's design, whether it's stagehands, it's collaboration.
And I wouldn't say you'd necessarily learn that in an acting college.
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes I see, as you get older and you work with younger actors, and sometimes you see, they always tell us when we're filming our stuff, and costume designers and wardrobe say, we always know the actors that have kind of come up, through the ranks. They always hang up their little things. Always hang up your costumes. Sometimes the younger people, they kind of go, you're all here to serve me.
That's what wardrobes are.
Exactly. And it's not. It's your costume. It's part of your character. Do you know what I mean? And respect. And sometimes, you kind of go, you didn't learn that. You know what I mean? You need
and it brings me to another thing that I'm really interested in, and that is the whole area of chemistry.
Yeah.
And how important chemistry is in every aspect of the arts, in terms of how you get on with people, how you present yourself, how you don't rub each other up the wrong way, all of that sort of stuff. Because you do sort of hear of directors being, very abrasive people. And I know there are more exceptions than there are that idea of rule, but same with actors, that they're temperamental, all of that sort of stuff. Is that a bit sort of in the past, old Hollywood?
No,
perception?
it's not. It's not. I mean, we all have our own way of dealing with things, and we all have our own way of preparing, the work. And acting is a difficult profession. I mean, you're constantly in a sort of in a suspended state of possibility and disappointment.
Yes.
And egos sometimes come into it, and people deal with, you've all sorts of personalities. You're thrown together, especially in theatre. You're thrown together. You might not know each other really well. Of course, there are times that you're working with friends, but you can't be working with friends all of the time. You're working with directors that may have come from England. In the past, we had directors from America in the National Theatre and stuff. So you're working with different personalities. And as I said, we all have our own way of kind of getting there. And it could be a nervous thing, it could be an insecurity. And you just have to try and block it out. For me, it's the work. It's the work. Okay, you might have a difficult actor that mightn't, give you all that you might require. Yes. But that then you would hope, I think it's easier on film than it is on stage, because on film, the camera, you go in for your close-ups. And again, with film, you might get an actor that will not play the scene the same way when the camera is not on them. They will not give you their 100% until the camera is turned around the other way.
Yeah.
And you just have to be so familiar with your own character that no matter what people throw at you, that you're there to bring, because that's your job. You know what we're paid for.
Yes,
so
exactly.
you're paid, and that's your job, to bring that character to life.
Yeah. You made an interesting observation to me when we were chatting earlier about the difference between stage and film. So far as stage can be very forgiving because the audience are at a distance to you, whereas with film, they can be right in your face and the slightest twitch will be noticed.
Yes, but stage is more difficult because if you mess up on stage, there's nowhere to hide. If you mess up on film, there's always the other take, the next take. You can do as many takes, obviously with budget constraints, but if something doesn't work out for you, there's always the possibility of another take. If you forget a line on stage, if the actor opposite you forgets a line and doesn't give you your cue, what we call a cue, the right line, you've got to get out of that, and you've got to make it as seamless as possible. You have with an audience, it's live. There could be somebody that has a cough. There could be somebody that has a nervous laugh, that's laughing at a point of play that actually you go, there shouldn't be a laugh there. So you've got to kind of ride that. I always on stage, for me, the audience is the magic ingredient. We can work out in a rehearsal room. You can go, there's a laugh here. There's how you play a line to get a laugh. But that's the technique. But
nobody laughs on a film set. You have an audience on the stage.
Exactly.
You're getting almost no reaction on film. So that must make it a little more difficult in a sense.
It is more difficult. Yes, it is more difficult. Yes, it is. And as you said, the film, the camera is much smaller. So you've got to be aware that the least thing you do, you've got to be alive. And if you're alive as a person, a gesture, a movement of the eye, will carry, will tell a story. And sometimes less is more for camera. For me, I think it, and I try and portray it through the eyes, or a movement or something. Whereas with stage, it's much bigger,
Yeah, interesting. The fact that you are a fluent Irish speaker, has that helped your career in ways, in the sense that there are probably a smaller pool of people to choose from when it comes to film in the Irish language or plays in the Irish language?
Well, now it has, because with the advent of T.G. Cahir, and they, through Screen Ireland and themselves and independent producers, they've set up what they call Cine Cahir. And Alan Aslamon, who's the chief executive of T.G. Cahir, was of the opinion that we've stories to tell in the Irish language. The Irish language is a beautiful language. It goes right back to Sanskrit, really, you know what I mean? And we have stories to tell, and let's put the money, let's all come together, let's collaborate and put the money in there, and let writers, directors and actors get on with it. So in the sense that I had worked in the Irish language, I had done some Irish plays and stuff, and I was fluent in the language. It did help because, of course, you're dealing with smaller budgets, So you've got you've got maybe 4 weeks to shoot something,
Yeah.
So they want you to be fluent and they want you to come to the table with your work prepared. So knowing the language backwards is always help. So yes, it has helped me in the past couple of years. Yes.
And the Irish language film has sort of taken on leaps and bounds, hasn't it, as a result
Yes.
of An Colleen Kuhn.
Yes,
And
yes.
indeed your film,
Roche and Frank. Yes, it has. And that was the objective, because with a play, you I've been in great productions, but they're gone. They're gone.
Yes.
Nobody remembers. Younger actors. I talk to younger actors now about our wonderful actors of the past, like Siobhan McKennis, the Cyril Cusack, the Donal McCanns, that gave beautiful performances, wonderful performances. And sometimes they go, who?
Yeah.
What? Who? Because it's gone. But with film, it's always there. It's always there. It can reach a wider audience. I mean, with Roche and Frank, it's playing in the States at the moment. It was in Australia, so it can reach, and that was the objective, of setting up Cine Ceathair, that we can reach a wider audience. And in a way, because I had the good fortune of traveling with it, I went to Sonoma Festival in California with it. And here we were with an Irish language, and people were saying, oh my God, it's such a beautiful language. Yes. And there was no baggage. And sometimes as Irish people, we come with baggage about the language because it brings up all sorts of stuff,
Sure. Yes.
So it was lovely to kind of do something in my own language, the language that was around me when I was a kid, and showcase it to the wider world, really.
But while we're on the subject, then why don't we have a little look at a clip from that?
Okay.
And thanks to the Lisa Richards agency for supplying the link to me. And they represent you, isn't that right?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Okay.
Conastá the war.
Bra. Pósach mama agus dad beidir bert fithe. Níl sé is gur hí lacha leis gúil sé imethe.
Céir den rud dearnach a dúir tathir silam.
Mam.
Níl deire lean ar scéal go fáile chraí. Á sé tíonta galan. É take ar ais.
Tá bh má é meas a meáir.
Tá sí carcóta!
Nis fin ceart ar anbhé sin agus ní chóir meach an madra sa síoch an tosa.
Frank is anam dom.
Hey Mikey, le madra sin ag múna am hánaí ag de dit.
Spirit an amáí is mó bhí riomh an bráiste se.
Madra mira na hamáníachta!
Seo chuinge, an trénálaí amána is fear sa tír.
Chuir an madra sin das bionar híidir mar eicem sin scéal.
Agus aríam mín si cinneach stéagacha don bhadra.
Má sé sin speisialta clúir. Ní Frank le ar madra sin.
An leanana go ar Frank.
Tá, cínta. Agus ar a bheanna chomá.
Éist, tá tú cliste, ach tá nithe áirithe sa saoil seo nach digan tú. Níl is agad cad a Harlaín dúin tréis ar má sealan. Níl is ag haine.
That was beautiful, Bríd.
Thank you.
And I would urge people to watch the entire film. It's a wonderful film. We did a sort of an exclusive screening, didn't we, in the Arts Club?
Which was lovely.
Very well attended and fantastic, really fantastic. A beautiful, beautiful film.
And would you believe that was the first time that I actually sat down and watched that film?
You're joking.
From the beginning to the end.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, I don't like watching myself on screen. So that was the first time that I actually could actually go, okay, Yeah.
Did you not have to see that when you were on tour, doing the tour?
No, I didn't. I
Okay.
decided not to. I decided to come in at the very top of the screening and then come in at the very end.
Okay.
Because I'd be too critical. And yeah. So I didn't. Yeah.
Kathy Andrews says, "Can you please write the name of the film?" I presume you mean the film there. Yeah, I'll do that later on if that's okay, when I get a chance. Yeah, no problem. But it's Roisha and Frank, Roise and Frank.
Yeah, and I think TG Cahir are showing it on Christmas Eve at 8 o'clock.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Listen, that's super. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Just going back in time a little bit, because I know probably one of the highlights of your career was being part of the play Dancing at Lunasa, which had a 5-month run in Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, how it came about and where it took you, and why it became such a special moment in your life?
Yeah, I was a member of the Abbey Company, and you played as cast. You didn't have a choice of saying no, I can't do this or I can't do that. So I was actually in a production of John Millington Synge's The Playboy of the Western World. I was playing Peggy Mike, and it was going to go to America on an American tour, and I was called into the office. Noel Pearson, who was the artistic director at the time, called me in and he said, "You're not going to America." And I was so excited. I was going, oh my God, a great tour in America. Didn't have any idea of what place, because we didn't know as actors. We never know what's in or what's not in and stuff. And he said, "There's a new Brian Freer play in. There might be something in it for you." And he just left it at that. And I went, okay, all right, okay. And as we all know, Brian Freer is one of our foremost writers. And it was a new play, a world premiere. It was always so exciting. And it still is to work on world premieres. So I hadn't heard anything. And then suddenly we heard that Patrick Mason was directing it, and it was about 5 sisters in Donegal, and I was cast. And we started out. Brian was in the room. He was always in the room on his first plays and stuff, and it was a very, very, very exciting time. We opened in the Abbey, and I remember it was a very kind of prestigious opening, and Charlie Haughey was Taoiseach at the time, and there was a big meeting, very important government meeting, but they actually didn't want to miss the opening night. Really? So the meeting took place upstairs in the rehearsal room so that they could actually finish the meeting and come down and be there for the opening. We opened. Reviews were mixed. They weren't brilliant. They were mixed. But the response was just amazing, and audiences kept coming and sold out and stuff. And then Brian had a sort of an association with America, because Faith Healer, James Mason had played in Faith Healer there, so they decided this might be a good play to travel. And we were supposed to go to America. And I don't think we were going into Broadway at that stage, because you just don't transfer to Broadway straight away. You go into another theatre, depending on reviews and stuff, and then goes to Broadway. But the Gulf War happened, so they said no, nobody was going to theatre. Nobody was going to theatre, so they had an affiliation with the National Theatre in London. We went to the National Theatre in London, played there. It was a huge success, packed. And from there, we went into the West End. And we thought, West End, very commercial. Will they get, 5 Sisters, Donegal, all of that sort of thing? Again, and it's interesting, the same response from audiences right across the board. There's a sequence in the middle of the play, the dance. you know, and it's really, it's a release of frustration and stuff. And in Ireland, after that scene, everybody, there was a spontaneous, that's it there, yeah. There was just a spontaneous response. And we all kind of went, oh, we're not going to get this response in London, in the West End. But it was actually the same response. So it's interesting how things can, you know, can travel and stuff, and people have the same response to stuff. And after playing the West End, I think we did 2 months, 3 months in the West End, and then we went to Broadway. And of course, we were going into Broadway again. You know, again, yes, it was a huge success in London and West End, but we had to prove ourselves again in Broadway. Yeah,
and especially when the butcher of Broadway,
yes, Frank
reigns
Rich.
supreme. Tell us about that.
Frank Rich wrote for the New York Times. He was such an influential theatre critic, and he could actually close a show if he, and he was very fair. He was a fair critic, but he actually had that power of actually saying this is not a great play. And because there's so much money involved and tickets are very expensive on Broadway and stuff, and people, you know, people read him. And so the opening night it was a gala performance, and all the stars were there, and we had our previews. They have 2 weeks of previews on Broadway where all critics come in. And by opening night, the show started at 6 o'clock, and the after party is about 8, 9 o'clock. But they all held us at arm's length until that particular review came in. And I remember we were in Sardi's, or one of those big restaurants in New York, and we were all, you know, we were going, here we are. How did this happen? How are we so lucky to get to this point? But production and producers and Brian, they were all kind of went, this will depend on this. The success of this will depend on one review. So somebody was sent out to get the paper. I think Brian and Noel Pearson went into a toilet to read it. And they came out and they were beaming. And it was, after that, we ran for 5 months, and we had everybody that was anybody came to see it. And I had the privilege to meet people like Katharine Hepburn, you know, Lauren Bacall, Sidney Poitier, you know, people that you'd kind of looked at their work, and never in a million years would you think, oh my God, these people are coming to see my work. And you know,
would you have met them at a sort of an after party or something like that?
No, we would always. There was an announcement over the tannoy. Such and such. Barbara Streisand is in the audience tonight. Katharine Hepburn is in the audience tonight. No pressure, like, you know what I mean.
And they did this, so you guys all heard this before you went out.
Over the tannoy and on our dressing rooms. Yes, yeah.
Jessica, I would have thought.
And Lauren Bacall. So they came around. They came around to the green room and came around and met us. And we were kind of sitting there pinching ourselves, and Lauren Bacall sitting across on a couch going, this was absolutely wonderful. Katharine Hepburn at the time, I think she made one of those fruit cakes and kind of sent it around to us and stuff. But also not just us, but Brian as a playwright, the respect for Brian as a playwright and his work. And there was that as well. Yes, the production, you know, we worked really hard. We had 8 shows a week. We played Christmas. The only time we had off was Thanksgiving because it's their huge holiday. But we played Christmas, and if we missed If there was if we missed a show, then we had to make it up. We had to have the 8 shows a week. So we had 2 shows on a Wednesday, we had a matinee on a Saturday, and we had a show on a Sunday. So it was hard work. It was hard work, but it was wonderful. It was absolutely.
Tell me, did you have any downtime to go visit places, or were you literally living from bedroom to stage?
I mean, you walked the city and stuff, but you really were working. You were working, and you didn't have that much downtime because it was all, from 4 o'clock. If I'm working in theatre and if I'm doing a show, from 4 o'clock, really, I've zoned out of everything, food, everything, and you're concentrating on that. And also because it was such a success, and because we were representing our national theatre and representing our country in a way, we needed to be on form. You couldn't come in and, party all night and kind of come in and nonchalantly kind of step on a stage and no, because I learned years and years and years ago, there was a great actor in the Abbey Theatre, Ray McNally. And he said to me, they were wonderful at the time, because they would actually, as a young actor, they'd say, well, actually, if you play this line like this, if you shorten that line, you'll get a laugh, all of that sort of thing, all that advice. But he said to me one day, he said, it's your job as an actor to entertain an audience. He said, if you go into a shop, if you go in to buy a coat, for example, you look at the coat, you pick it up, you try it on before you actually pay for it. He said, an audience coming to the theatre, they're coming and they're trusting you to entertain them. And I've never forgotten it, Alan. I've never forgotten it, because sometimes, especially on stage, you get actors and, there's the hype, the opening night, and it's wonderful and it's all that sort of thing. And then you see into the run, say sometimes, because sometimes we run for 5 weeks, depending on the success of the show.
Yes.
They get complacent and you go, you're not on form tonight. And there's somebody in an audience that has paid for a ticket, maybe paid for a babysitter, paid for a taxi to come to see you. You owe it to them to give them a good night's entertainment. And I've never forgotten it,
Yeah. That's a good motto to keep.
Yeah. Yes. Because they're paying my wages.
Yes.
They're paying our wages, and respect them,
Yeah. What was accommodation like in New York? Were you stuck in a hotel somewhere, or where did you stay?
No, they really, really looked after us, because we had American producers as well, and assistants and stuff that kind of looked after all of that. So I had an apartment literally about 5 minutes from the theatre, literally in mid Manhattan. I could walk to Fifth Avenue, I could walk to Central Park, I could walk to, so we were very well, also because we were there for a long period of time. You needed to have you couldn't live in a hotel unless you had a suite or something like that. You just couldn't. You had to have your home, like try and make it a home from home.
Yes. And do you miss that time? I mean, that must have been really special for you.
It was very special. I mean, do I miss it? No, I mean, I always acting is, you're kind of on a roller coaster, really. You know what I mean? You kind of ride the highs and you learn from the lows. And I consider myself very lucky. I had that experience, and you carry that and what you learned from it, you carry it on to your next project, to your next job, and you go, that was very special. And wasn't I lucky? I always kind of say that, wasn't I lucky?
Okay.
But no, I don't miss it, because then you move on to something else, and that's the strange thing about our business, and you were talking about visual artists and the difference, and and the solitary, preparation before. I mean, I suppose as actors, then there's the collaboration, But there are times there are times in the past that I go, oh, that was brilliant. That'll be it. I'll never work again.
Yeah,
Do you know?
it's like painting a masterpiece and selling it. It's sold, get on with it. You're doing the next one.
Exactly. And you're only as good as your last play or as your last production or as your last film. And sometimes, I've been in shows in the past and on paper, everything is fantastic. This director, or this cast, this play, and something happens and it doesn't work. And it's the same with films. We've seen it with films, big blockbusters, and you go and see and you go, what happened? And we never know. And if you did know, you'd bottle it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there's one that I love that was, I think, made for TG4 and TG Cahir, I should say.
Yeah.
But it was taken on by Netflix. And I think Trina and I saw it on Netflix
Okay.
at a point when we didn't,
Yeah.
we didn't know you as such.
Yeah.
And I'd like to show that piece. It's
Yeah.
about a 4-minute clip. So let's do that and we can chat about that. Because that was made in Connemara, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was made in Oakterard. Yeah.
Yes.
You know the spot I mean? The mountain trail to the north of the town, just beyond the city of tents.
I know it.
There's a little red flag on a tree. That marks the rendezvous. Don't worry, the packers will find her. But $10 lenny clefanach tariha.
$10? Chinga yorna, pa?
But just ganalach. Fall to go Dominion Creek walk. Gira ordu point hatu. One pipe conference of Essen Jamata. Can that bally who? Me? Ravi?
That's a good fein gone as a vince for the house and so. Slownian and Tom Hart.
Srivi? Taran sheer dot on a banch bagon. By Samer Beach. Near Shatata Finara. I'm a dear father, Ola.
Neil me a one fein on a vase less Sam Marshin than Kedor.
You're on the tuish idea of Hannah.
Catan.
Rue. Penny Royal. It's Rodiella. Ian me breglat. Dian Shetinu. Fa couple of law. Agus cáile tú an rud atá a bhrínead.
Inis an scéal dom faoin slí gur tháinig tú an sa.
Ó, tá sé snirólas go mágad.
Inis the Mary sé.
Tháinig me níos ann an Yukon leú a $2,000 go flideanna go bhuidéilis go té. Tá bhí slí go chapal seachtain, bhí $2,000 sírí agam. Díalis na créitú róite. An sin, dhéanam me contar lóin. A sin, teach lóistín. Agus an ish. Ben kick hier. Je kan het posten.
Het wordt om een dag zijn gebouw.
Die weet je me heet. Waar het je werktaggy. Dat de bali herrada.
Wonderful film. It was actually a series, wasn't it?
It was a series, yeah. I think we
Yeah.
shot it in 2017, 18, I think. I'm terrible on dates and stuff. Yeah.
Sure. No, that's
And
fine.
that character was based on a real character from Mayo who went to the States and worked as a domestic servant and then moved on from there and ended up a very wealthy woman, actually.
Yes. Fantastic. And is that is still on Netflix, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, I'm nearly sure
I
it
think
is.
so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dahi Keane, apart from the surname, doesn't ring a bell.
Dahi Keane was a young editor at the time, and I think that was his first time as a director, and he was absolutely wonderful, and he's gone on to do stuff. He's done Smother, and he's done, I think there's another one of his that's coming out in for RT in January, February. So he was great. Again, you're working it was a very big crew. We shot it in Oak Gerard in Glengowla Mines, and they actually built that set. It was, I think the set is still there, that they actually, you know, people that actually come to see the mines, they go, oh, this is where Klondike was shot and stuff. So it was a great time. Yeah. I think we worked on that for about 6-7 weeks or something. Yeah. And then there was the second series. Yeah.
Irish and English. It wasn't just
Irish and Spanish. Was a mixture of Irish actors and English speaking actors. Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm going to go to Q&A now in a minute, but I just want to show one little clip. Well, sorry, it's not a clip, it's a still, because unfortunately we weren't able to get a clip in time for this, and you'll all recognize, if I can find it, but one of the more recent films that you've been in is none other than The Banshees of Inisherin.
Yes.
And there you are.
Yeah.
With the gang. Tell us about that experience.
That was fantastic. You know, I mean, I was very familiar with Martin McDonagh as a playwright, and he's written some great plays and stuff. And we had heard through the agency again that there was the Banshees was being shot, and there were characters, and of course we all you know, we all converse, you know, all actors, and said, oh, did you self-tape for the Martin McDonagh and stuff? And he said, yeah, we all did. I'd never worked with Martin. I was familiar with his work. I hadn't been in any of his stage plays, and I thought, oh God. But I knew when I read, because we didn't get the complete script. Sometimes you only get the scene that you're reading for. But there was something about it that I go, I know this territory, I know this woman, so how do I convince him, you know?
Yes.
So I did the self-tape, and you send it in, and the agent sends it on and stuff.
Explain a self-tape, because I think that's something that sort of takes the place of an actual audition.
Yes. And I think that kind of sort of started with COVID, because you couldn't get into the room to meet the director. So you had a thing called a self-tape. So you set up your phone or your iPad or stuff, and you record yourself, and you try and get somebody else to read the lines, you know, the opposite actor, and you send it in. And it's always better to be in the room with the director, you know. But having said that, if you mess up a self-tape, you can do 3 or 4. You could spend all day doing them.
That's
you know,
true,
so you know. So I sent it in, didn't hear anything for a couple of days, and you know, we were all, you know, have you heard? And then he said, could you do it again? I had put a scarf on because I thought, my blonde hair, I don't see Mrs. O'Riordan, you know, the end of the Civil War with blonde hair. I thought, how am I going to, you know, because you're constantly doing that, you know. So I put a scarf on, and word came back from Martin. Martin liked the tape. Can she do it without the scarf? I thought, all right, okay. So got loads of sprayed my hair, different color, and put it in again. And then word came back, Martin would like to meet you, you know, on Zoom. And there could be producers, because there were different screen light, I think, or producers in the States, and producers for Channel 4 and stuff, people that he'd worked with before. And they could also be on the Zoom. So it went, okay, met him and had a conversation, and he offered me the role there and then, because normally they don't do that. They kind of go, confer, and he said, I'd love you to be in it. And it was fantastic, because Alan, it was a huge production, you know, and you realize, you know, when you get on set first day, we had Colin and Brendan and Kerry Condon and a huge crew, you know. So you realize when you come on set, you go, this is big. So and because my scenes were, you know what I mean, I had 3 scenes, you know, and you go, you got to hit this, and you got to, you know, step up to the mark here. But he was wonderful to work with, you know. We rehearsed in Galway, all of us. We just sat around a table, read the script, chatted. He gave us notes and stuff. So, and even with the scenes with the musicians, we had an evening where all the musicians came in and we all had pizza and glasses of wine and stuff, and we just played. And that was deliberate on Martin's behalf. By the time musicians came in to do the scene, because sometimes with film, there are loads of people, there are loads of people in front of you. There's camera, there's loaders, there's makeup, there's costume, and they're all right in your eye line. So if you know everybody, and if you're familiar, and if you've heard the lines, before, what the other actor is going to bring to the table. And but it was absolutely wonderful. It was great. It was a great experience.
And Martin McDonagh seems quite an extraordinary character. People seem to have a hell of a lot of time for him.
Yes, he knows what he wants. I mean, he would do another take. He'd come on the floor to give you a note, and you'd have to pick it up there and then and do another take. But once he said moving on, you knew that he was happy and stuff. And he likes actors. I think he understands actors. Yes, he understands the technical end of it. I mean, there are directors that just concentrate on technique and allow you to kind of get on with it. Martin, both. He straddles both things, both disciplines, in the sense that yes, we have to have all of that, but actors need to be comfortable to actually to bring the characters to life. Yes.
Bríd, I'm sure you love Brendan and Colin, but who in the acting world, and I mean literally the world, would you really look up to as a sort of a role model?
I watch a lot of stuff, I watch a lot of films. I'd watch films online. I'd watch Frances McDormand is an actor that I always, because she's not afraid to be herself. Do you know what I mean? You see warts and all. She's Gina Rowlands. She was an older actor. She's since passed on. I like danger on screen. I like to see that energy. I think Frances has that. And actors here, I had the good fortune of working with wonderful Tom Hickey, with Ray McNally, with Siobhan McKenna, with Cyril. I always looked up to all of those actors. Joan O'Hara, who's Sebastian Barry's mum, I worked with her in the Abbey, and I learned a lot from them, and I'd still, if I had a problem with the line, I'd kind of go, oh, I wonder how such a person would play that,
Yes.
Anthony Hopkins, I like, because they always kind of go back to the stage again. Stephen Ray, there's so many of them,
Sure.
many of them.
Trina has preempted my question. Lots of actors say it's very hard to make a living in acting. You're a very successful actress, and I wonder, apart from the very necessary talent to make it in the industry, what would you say to anyone who has a dream to become an actor? Which is what I was going to ask.
Yeah, stick with it. Believe in yourself. Don't believe too much of the hype that goes with it, because that's part of the business, especially with film. You do the work, you shoot it, it's gone, then it's back, and it's red carpets, and it's all that's, and that's part of it, because it has to be sold. Don't believe too much of that. It's all connected with the work. Surround yourself with people that believe in you, that trust you, and be kind to yourself and work at it. Prepare. 2 nights ago, I had the good fortune of presenting a few short movies, and women in film and television. They do amazing work and stuff. And the amount of young directors, writers, and they're coming up, but a lot of them were saying, we find it so difficult. It is difficult. And even if you listen to big stars, they find it, they find it difficult, but stick with it.
Stick with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good advice, Bríd. Good
Yeah.
advice. Okay, I'm going to allow everyone to unmute themselves.
I've written down a question. I know it's a banal question, but it's always interesting. What would have been your greatest challenge where you may have had to overcome something that you thought was maybe impossible? And obviously on the reverse, or maybe it's the same answer, what was your greatest victory or sense of success?
I did a production recently of Samuel Beckett's Happy Days, translated it into Irish and played it on the Aran Islands on Inisir, one of in a very remote area of the Aran Islands. And when I went down, and as you know, it's set in a sort of a mound, and Winnie's in a mound, and the first half she's up to her waist, and the second half she can't move anything. That was very challenging, because I was also depending on the elements, and when we went down to rehearse it, when we went actually on location, I couldn't get in because it was so wet and stuff. So every day. That was, that's that clip there. Yeah. And that was amazing because we had the president came on the opening day, and they had set up the stones, like they'd set up like seats, because there was no seats, there was nothing. So that was a challenge, but it was also very, very rewarding. And I try, and every job that I do, I try to bring something to it that I find interesting, and every job really is rewarding. I'm lucky that I've been constantly working, because as I was saying, it is such a precarious business. There are loads of very good actors out there that don't work for long periods of time, and I consider myself very, very lucky. So everything is rewarding.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thanks, Kathy Ann, for that.
Thank
Great
you.
question. Pamela Debris says, do you think there's a future with Irish language theatre?
I think it has to be supported. I think certainly with film, it's a roller coaster at the moment, because the money has been invested. I think you've got to invest in the writers, and you've got to support them. And if we have writers, then we have productions, but it all starts with the writer, and I've always, all through my life, you support, you serve the writing. And I think I'm going into a production of Isaklas, the Persian, in end of January, and it's translated by one of our foremost poets, Nolan Igonal, into Irish, and it's a production being done by theatre. And I think, yes, you need to support writers, and you need to support productions, and then people will come to see them.
Could I ask Bríd, which language are you happier working in, English or in Irish? And is it a great advantage for you as an actress from the point of view of getting jobs, that you have that facility to work in both languages?
It is an advantage. It is an advantage. I'm comfortable in both languages, because when I was growing up in Rusmok, my mother, I think she was a feminist before she knew what feminist was about, but she understood the importance of education, and she also understood, she knew Irish was all around us, and she spoke English to us at home. So because she thought, she saw everybody in her, and I did too, having to emigrate, and she said, I don't want my kids to emigrate, I want them to be comfortable in the English language. So I'm comfortable in both languages, really. They both have their own, Irish has, I suppose, an extra significance for me, coming from where I came from, and trying to kind of maybe show other young kids there that they can kind of reach, carve a career, you know. So to answer your question, yes, I'm comfortable in both languages, and yes, Irish at the moment is an advantage because and now you notice actors, you know, special special interests, or you know, that you can drive or you can ride a horse, and now they're putting down, I can speak Irish, you know.
Yeah.
Fáilte Road.
Lovely, thank you for that. Anybody else? David Goldberg, you're never short of a word. Would you, for God's sake, ask a question?
Hello. Hello, Bríd.
Hello.
David was at the screening in the Arts Club of the film.
Thank you.
I love your work, Bríd. I can compliment you and extol what you do. The last thing I saw of yours was Rochelle Frank.
Yeah.
And it was a delight, an absolute delight. I'm going to watch it on Christmas Eve with relish and with glee. And I didn't know that I didn't know anything about Klondike. So if it's on Netflix, I'd be happy to watch that. Very happy to watch it. I saw a production of Dancing at Luna with Roisin Lenihan.
Rosaline, yes. Yeah.
Were you in that as well?
Yeah, I was. Yes, I was. Yes.
Yeah.
Rosaline went to America with us because the original Kate was Frances Tomalty, and Rosaline then took over. Yeah, and I still meet Rosaline from time to time, and she's wonderful. And again, she would be one of the actors that I would look up to, and that I've learned an awful lot from. You know.
Okay, very good. Eilish says, really interesting episode. Thanks, Bríd and Alan. Bríd is always compelling in her work. And Brigitte says, when Bríd described the life of an actor, sorry, I beg your pardon. Let's start that again. When Bríd described the life of an actor, it sits between the possibility, or sitting between the possibility and disappointment. It resonated with me, such as the life of all creatives in the art forms.
Yes, it's so true. You know, you don't do it for the money. You do it for the love of it. You know, if we were doing it for the money, we'd be doing something else, but we'd be actually bored, wouldn't we? You know.
Very good.
Alan.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what Bríd thinks should the Abbey have kept the company?
Sorry, Seamus, could you repeat that?
Should the Abbey have kept the Abbey company?
Well, well, of course, I'd say yes. Yes, I do think they should have. But times have changed, you see. But there was a great commitment to the theatre, to the National Theatre, to the playwrights, to the work. And I think young kids now want to be stars, and they don't want to, you know, they don't want to sort of commit to 5 weeks rehearsal, 6 weeks of playing in a theatre. They want to kind of reach, you know, they want to be stars, you know, and you kind of go, what's a star? You know what I mean? It's your body of work. It's what you do. It's your consistency. So I don't think you'd get the same commitment that you got from that wonderful group of people that gave their life really to the theatre. And but yes, there are advantages, you know, because if you've got to play, and at the time when I was young in the theatre, in the Abbey, and if a play wasn't doing well, you always had a group of actors that say, okay, we're going to put something else on, you know. So if you don't have a company, you don't have that backup. If somebody gets sick, now I remember playing when my father died, because you committed, that was the show went on, you know. That's not the case anymore. If somebody gets sick, they close, and you kind of go, well, what about the people that have paid? What about the people that have come and paid for their tickets? You know, so there isn't the same commitment, you know. But yeah, I think there are great advantages of having a company. And having people that know each other really well. And Alan spoke about chemistry, and you know people, and you can play, you know, in the sense of play and develop a character much easier with people that you know, and that you know the work and stuff. So there are loads of advantages of having a company.
Can I just ask one last question? I know I already asked a question.
Oh, you're fine, Kathy Ann. Go on.
I just thought there are many things that probably are common amongst the creative arts, people involved in creative arts. But I do think, and you've brought this up briefly, that your health is really, I asked myself, you know, you're performing. Many people, if they're not having to perform as such in front of people, obviously their health, well, they'll have a day, well, they'll take the day off or go to bed or whatever. But I think over a period of your career, I would say that it's such a challenging situation to have always top of the form, good health. How do you, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I hope.
Yes, you know, it's a very good question, Kathy. I remember when we were doing Lunasa, there was a time we were actually playing in the West End, and we all picked up a bug. We had a vomiting bug, and you just hope and pray that you get through the scenes. But I remember we had buckets at the side of the stage, and there were nights that you came off, or during the interval that you actually vomited, you know, but that you went on, and it's that. I have it. I've learned it from the older actors and stuff. The show goes on, unless I played when my father died. I played the night my father died, because the show goes on, you know, and you have, that's your mindset, you know, that's your mindset, and you mind yourself, you know, you can't be partying, and you can't be doing things, you can't be up until 4 a.m. if you want to give an audience a good night's work, a good night's entertainment. So yeah, you mind yourself, you have to, especially with theatre. With film, it's different because you can actually, you know, they can change dates and stuff. You know, if you're not available on such a date, if you tell them, you know, say if you've got, you know, something, or if you've got a bug or something, they can change a scene. They can do, say if you're doing an exterior, a scene outside, they can come in and do the interiors. You can't do that with stage, you know, but you just mind yourself, you know, and that's part of your job, you know.
That sounds like a great mindset for life.
Well, it is. Yes, it is. And we all
that was a great question. And I think to be honest with you, that's why you are busy, Bríd, because you have that commitment.
Maybe, yeah, but I think I owe it to the people that are paying my salary, you know, and that they're the people that come to see your work, you know, and you owe it to them, you know, you owe it to them, you know.
Very good. Okay, listen, we leave it there, guys. Thank you so much, Bríd. That was fantastic. You are a star.
Thank you all. It was such a huge privilege to be with you all, and I just want to thank you all that have tuned in, and wish you all a lovely day and a lovely Christmas, if it's not too early.
No, it's not too early. No, it's not too early. And Bríd, I know I speak for everyone else in thanking you very much for being here and for sharing your thoughts and the highs and lows of your career and all of that. You've been remarkable. So thank you so much.
Thank you
so next week I have a German artist, visual artist called Ralph Gelbert. You haven't heard of him? You will after this. Anyway, very interesting guy, and that will be the last one before Christmas. All right. So I look forward to that. And again, thank you all for joining us this morning. And Bríd, thank you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you. Thank you all.